What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and we are working on the 1-ton build series I've been wanting to do for a really long time now. As you can see, my Jeep is already in pieces because I am already partway through this process. I am doing a Dana 60 front axle from a Ford Super Duty 2005 and up, so I got the 35 spline axles on there. And then I'm using a GM 14 bolt full float rear end. I'm doing literally everything to rebuild these axles: gearing, brakes, the trussing, all the little pieces like wheel speed sensors, things like that, to throw this underneath my Jeep and have it run just like OEM, but with the big gigantic axles on there. Along with that, I also have a set of tires hidden away in the backside over there that I already gotten mounted. And I am so stoked to getting it on the trail. And like I said, I'm about halfway through, so not much more to say, but let's jump back to the beginning and let's see where it all began. And as you can see behind me, the list is quite long there. From steering, axle trussing, welding on all the brackets, doing all the new brake components, gears, lockers, everything like that. Got a lot of work to do. I'm on my way in the truck to go get some axles for the 1-ton swap. Found a little junkyard in Grapeview, Washington. It's just barely north of Shelton, out on the peninsula, just barely on the peninsula. I got a set of axles for $300 for each axle. I'm trying to go southbound from north side of Seattle, through Tacoma. It is 8:30 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday. So far I've been driving for half an hour and I have gone 12 miles. The joke is Seattle is an hour away from Seattle because the traffic's so bad. All right, I am home, got the axles back with me at my house. So now it's time to get these things out and into my garage. Okay, so I had an idea to get the axles onto jack stands that are on furniture movers. Now, I've been using the furniture movers to move the axles around inside my garage, but as you know, once you start welding, cutting, grinding, whatever, metal heats up, and I don't want to catch these things on fire. I guess it's just time to start cutting off all these extra brackets that are on here. Anything attached to the tube itself needs to get out of there. Yeah, everything has got to come off the axle tube itself, away from the brackets for your brakes, all the way to the pumpkin itself. Axle tube's got to be cleaned. Easiest thing I'm going to do is take an angle grinder, start cutting everything off. I can go in with a Sawzall as well, and afterwards angle grinder just to grind everything off. Now that the rear axle is completely stripped, it is time to move on to the front one. However, there are 3 things that I learned in this process that I'm going to share with you guys as awesome tips. Number 1 tip, make sure you're wearing some sort of jacket or long sleeves while you're cutting and grinding, because I didn't do that the first night and I had metal shavings all in my arms and that was really, really irritating. Number 2, while the battery operated cutters, grinders, Sawzalls, they work great, I was burning through batteries way too fast. So make sure you get yourself a corded angle grinder, Sawzall, or whatever you're going to be using. And the number 3 is plan on cutting taking a lot longer than you thought. A buddy named Thomas, he's doing the same swap as I am, just a little bit ahead of me, and he told me it was going to take a little longer to cut everything off, and I was like, nah, it's not going to take that long. Well, you're right. Jumping up to the front axle here, there's a lot more stuff that needs to be cut off, like these big gigantic ears. That's where the old control arms used to mount for the Ford F-350 axles. Got all these brackets going around the side of the knuckles, and then a lot of stuff all the way around. Once again, we need to strip everything else off of here so it is all back to one bare axle. One more hint for you guys, face mask. I was wearing this last night, it was white. As you see now, it is not white anymore. I would have been breathing all this stuff in. I did for the first night, and I was just pulling out black boogers. I was hawking up some pretty nasty stuff. So face mask is a plus. Highly suggest getting a face mask on there. The front axle, passenger side, is supposedly a lot easier than doing the driver's side, just because there's so much stuff and so much tighter of an area. So I'm about to test that out. Got the passenger side complete. It is now time to start cutting on all the driver's side. I'm gonna have it hanging up here, still stabilized, but that'll give me a little bit of room to kind of rotate it back and forth a little bit. So let's see how it goes. Now that this bracket is out of the way, it is time to start cutting this big old ear off of here. Now this entire thing has to come off. And there's a whole bunch of webbing on the bottom side that also has to come off as well. So I'm going to start in sections, probably cut off this top half, and then work on the bottom half and cut that half off too. And then all this extra casting, all this extra webbing on top, all that comes on off. And how it's sitting right now is actually upside down. So this is the easy side. Before I get too far into cutting the rest of this, I should probably show you what it looks like. Yeah, that's why I'm wearing a face mask and some glasses. So I flipped it over here, and you can see on the top here, we have this big old top of the ear, and then this whole like webbing on top. All of this has to go away. This has to be a nice smooth transition down, and then this little side piece on the C here, this also has to be trimmed back and a little bit smoother here. There's no real easy way about it. Make sure you don't cut into the actual pumpkin itself, and then make sure that the line coming down is nice and smooth. So, as you can see from my face here, I am dirty. All the brackets and everything are now off of this, minus this little ring on the outside, but we'll get that once we get the rest of this part off. So per instructions through Barnes 4-wheel drive, 2 inches of this casting has to come off. That is for your 2005 and newer. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring it out using a little paint pen and just marking 2 inches every inch or so then I can just line up the cutting blade all the way through. What I'm going to do is measure out how deep of cuts I need to go. I took this little ruler, it is very, very thin, so I taped it off exactly the depth that I need to measure out. And to measure that out, I use the side of the casting down to the axle tube itself. What you have to watch out for is the outside of the casting is actually a hair taller than the inside. So what you want to do is make sure to reflect that on your tape. Don't go too deep so you don't cut into the axle tubing every single time you go through, because that's going to be a lot of fixing. You don't want to do that. Okay, so we got both axles completely cleaned off, stripped down, but as you can see, it is an absolute mess in here. So, before I go to the next step, let's clean this up. Bam! There we go. So it is a lot cleaner in here, as you can see. Don't mind the Christmas boxes. Up here in Seattle, we got a lot of snow, and the garbage man couldn't make it. So now we have a full month's worth of boxes. Now that these are all nice and clean, nicely ground down, now the goal is to paint them. Now, not with real paint that you normally would use. We're going to use some weld-through paint primer. Like Steal It, I got the 3M brand. Got a little bit more reviews, better reviews, so I got that. So it is time to prep this for the final, I guess, readiness for welding. And as you can see, I actually have both sides of the axles up on jack stands on furniture movers. Now that's going to give me the option to move it around inside my garage while also keeping it elevated. You can put it straight onto the furniture movers, but in my mind, hot metal, wood, cloth. As you're welding, I don't want anything to get on there and actually start igniting it and getting too hot. So they're raised up on some jack stands there. Also makes it a little bit easier, so I can actually rotate this up and down as I see fit. So I can actually weld all the way around it without having to go upside down. I can angle it as much as I want or as little as I want, and get those right angles perfectly for the truss, because per the Barnes 4-wheel drive instructions for them, you are going to actually have to put these put these trusses on at an angle because, you know, you're lifting it up and things like that. You want that those spring brackets to be pretty much level as best you can. So as you can see, everything is all prepped and ready. So it is time to paint them with the weld through primer. And just as a heads up, you might want to get a whole lot of cutting discs, Sawzall blades, both a thicker steel and the thinner steel, and a whole lot of flappy discs or grinding wheels. So I went through 36 grinding discs, 8 Sawzall blades, and 12 of these flappy discs to clear everything off. Might have been a little more efficient, using some a little bit more, but I mean, some of them were completely blown through. Some blew apart, you know, all that fun stuff with the discs. So grab a whole bunch of those, or if you have a friend with a plasma cutter, that'll save a lot of this and a lot of time. I need a plasma cutter. Anybody watching, if you want to donate a plasma cutter, hit me up in the comments below.